Sean O'Malley vs Chito Vera is going to be a banger. With Sean vs Chito set for the main event of UFC 299, this is definitely a fight that a lot of people are looking forward to. And although we have seen this fight before, both Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera improved significantly throughout that time. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy MMA, I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it. Chito Vera has been in the UFC forever, with his first UFC fight dating all the way back to 2014. And although he definitely did get some wins and he definitely did get some finishes early on, I would say Chito's career really started to go in the right direction in 2020. As during that year he beat Sean O'Malley, which was definitely a matchup that a lot of people, especially the UFC, thought Sean O'Malley would be able to walk through this guy. He was also able to go on a little bit of a win streak following that, as he beat Davey Grant by decision, as he beat Frankie Edgar by TKO, he beat Dominic Cruz by TKO, he beat Rob Font by decision, but if you watch that fight back, it was an absolute domination, and overall Chito was just doing a really nice job at starting to put some wins together. But unfortunately, after that mini win streak that he was going on, he ended up losing pretty decisively in a decision loss to Corey Sandhagen, but fortunately for Chito, after that, he got right back on track with a 3-round decision victory over Pedro Munoz. And that leads us to where we're at today, where Chito's next fight is actually going to be for the belt against Sean O'Malley. But a question that some of you may be wondering at this point is what makes Chito Vera so successful? Why was he able to go on that recent winning streak, and why is he competing for the belt at this point? Well, in my opinion, I think it comes down to a couple different factors, but the first factor has to be his overall striking ability. Now, when you watch Chito Vera fight out there, he's a very unique guy. He's definitely not a guy that throws a lot of volume out there. He's very calm and he's very patient, and his style is best suited for 5-rounders. What Chito does out there, especially in the early rounds, is he just reads what his opponent's doing. He likes to read his opponent's tendencies, and he likes to wait until he finds the perfect shot. And this style has definitely been very successful for him overall, as he definitely does have a lot of finishes within the UFC. But with that being said, there are a couple of case scenarios where this style has definitely not played to Chito's favor, and the most recent example of that is Corey Sandhagen. As Chito in that fight, it seemed like he was waiting and looking for that perfect shot, but since Corey was constantly moving and constantly showing him different looks, Chito never really got the opportunity to find that perfect shot and throw that perfect shot, and he ended up just losing pretty easily by decision. But a huge reason for why this style has been so successful for Chito comes down to a couple different factors. The first factor is his power. When you look at Chito's power, whether you talk about in his hands or in his legs, it's pretty clear that this guy can knock out anybody in the division. Chito has an extremely powerful left hook. He also has an extremely powerful jab, uppercut, hook, and cross. But besides that, probably the most impressive thing about his striking has to be his kicks. Chito does a phenomenal job at throwing kicks to the legs, body, and the head, but particularly does a really nice job at throwing body kicks in order to set up that head kick, that extremely powerful head kick that he can knock out anybody with. But I would say besides his power, another reason for why this style is so successful for Chito is he has phenomenal defense and a phenomenal chin. When you watch Chito out there, it's pretty clear that this guy does a phenomenal job at always keeping his hands up, always blocking most of the shots that are coming his way, and even if he does get clipped at times, he does have a phenomenal chin in order to eat those punches and not even get wobbled whatsoever. So it's pretty clear that Chito has all the tools he needs in order to be successful with that pretty unique style that he does possess. But besides his great stand-up ability, Chito definitely does have some submission ability, although he doesn't go to it all that often. Now, earlier on into his UFC career, he definitely had more submission victories, but as of late, it seems like Chito only wants to stay on the feet and he doesn't like to go to the ground that much. But if the fight does get to the ground, of course Chito does have the ability to submit certain guys. But overall, when you look at Chito's game, I think it's pretty clear that this guy is a very cerebral fighter and a very dangerous fighter. But now, let's move on to Sean O'Malley. So Sean O'Malley has definitely made it to the UFC some time ago as well. But early on in his career, he definitely was going up against a lot of guys that weren't really UFC material, and Sean was doing a really nice job at getting a bunch of TKO finishes over those guys and building up his record. And really the first test besides Chito for Sean O'Malley was going to be against Pedro Munoz, but of course that ended in a no contest in the second round after an eye poke. But after that fight, the UFC decided to put Sean O'Malley against the #1 contender at the time in Petr Yan. And going into that fight, essentially everybody thought this was a crazy fight, and everybody thought Petr Yan would absolutely run through O'Malley. But in that fight, Sean proved that he was on that level, and he did a phenomenal job at getting a decision victory over Petr. Now, a lot of people think Petr won that fight, but regardless of that fact, the fact that it was a competitive fight was definitely a huge win for O'Malley. Now, after that great win over Yan, he was then going to get a title shot over Aljamain Sterling. And similarly, going into the Aljo fight, a lot of people thought Aljo would be able to win this fight. A lot of people thought Aljo would be able to utilize his wrestling, take the fight to the ground, and find a submission that way. But of course, as we all know at this point, Sean O'Malley ended up finding a beautiful TKO finish in the second round of that fight, making him the champ of the bantamweight division. And at this point, although people had that thought in their mind that Sean O'Malley wasn't necessarily all that good, at this point I think it's pretty clear that he's on that level of the best guys of the bantamweight division. And currently at this point, his next matchup is set against Chito Vera, which is going to be a rematch and a revenge match for Sean O'Malley. But a question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, what does Sean do specifically out there that makes him so successful? Well, in my opinion, there's actually a bunch of things to it, but the first and main factor has to be his overall stand-up game. When you look at Sean's stand-up ability, it's pretty clear that this guy is very cerebral and has a really nice understanding of how to fight. Sean does a great job at utilizing his wingspan. He's one of the bigger guys at the bantamweight division, and O'Malley does a phenomenal job at utilizing that. Sean does a great job at throwing out that jab, at throwing out that left or right straight, consistently switching stances to give his opponents different looks. He does a great job at throwing hooks at times and also throwing uppercuts. And overall, in terms of his punching, I would say Sean does a really nice job at throwing power shots, but also having a great IQ in knowing when to throw which specific shot in order to keep himself safe and in order to throw the most powerful shot he can on his opponents. But besides just that, Sean definitely has a really good kicking game as well, as he has a really nice ability to throw kicks to the legs and throw kicks to the body as well as kicks to the head. And overall, in terms of Sean's stand-up game, I would say there's a lot to like, but the few things that jump out to me personally is his footwork. Sean does a phenomenal job at utilizing that footwork in order to stay away from his opponents and stay at a range that he wants to. But also, I would say another factor that jumps out to me is his overall fighting IQ. As I mentioned before, Sean does a phenomenal job at knowing when to be in which spots and when to throw which certain punches, and overall he keeps himself pretty safe for the most part. Now, in terms of Sean's ground game, we really haven't seen it all that much. We have seen some defensive wrestling from him against Petr Yan. We have seen him have the ability to get up once he gets taken to the ground, and overall, although he does have wrestling and although he does have jiu-jitsu, this definitely isn't one of the better aspects of his game, and in my opinion, I don't really see Sean O'Malley ever going to that as his main option. So overall, I definitely do think there is a lot to love about O'Malley's game, and I think it's pretty clear that this guy is also, similarly to Chito, an extremely dangerous and extremely cerebral fighter. But now, let's get into this specific fight between Sean and Chito, and let's get into my prediction. So I definitely think this is a very interesting fight. Obviously, Chito was able to win the first time, but both of these guys are significantly different fighters now as compared to what they were then. But I think this fight is going to come down to one thing: which guy can win their own individual battle. I think in order for Sean O'Malley to win this fight, he's going to need to utilize that phenomenal footwork that he's shown in every single one of his fights. If Sean's able to utilize that footwork, move around the octagon, throw that jab, throw kicks to the legs, body, and head at times, and just throw some power shots at times, but staying very safe out there, I do think Sean's going to be able to win. But if Chito's able to eventually find a huge power shot, whether that means a head kick, whether that means a left hook, or some other powerful punch, I do think he has a very real chance to put away Sean O'Malley once again. Because although Sean has definitely proven the ability to have a really good chin out there, Chito hits extremely hard. And even if you have a good chin, it doesn't really matter if you're getting head kicked. And I definitely think Chito can put away anybody in the division, and of course that includes Sean O'Malley. But if I had to give my official prediction at this point, I probably would pick Sean O'Malley. And the reason being is because if you look back at that Corey Sandhagen matchup versus Chito, Corey was doing a very similar thing to what I think Sean will do and should do. Corey was doing a really nice job at moving around that octagon, throwing some shots here and there, staying safe for the most part, avoiding all those big power shots from Chito, and he was able to beat Chito without even Chito really getting going whatsoever. And of course, that was also a 5-rounder, which this will be as well against Sean O'Malley. Now, one difference between the Corey matchup and the Sean matchup is Corey did utilize his takedowns, and Sean I'm sure will not. But with that being said, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if Sean at times looks to initiate in the clinch. So overall, I definitely do think it's more likely that Sean wins this matchup, but with that being said, Chito is obviously extremely dangerous. He can put away anybody, and I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if he's losing the first 2 or 3 rounds, and then he eventually finds a huge shot to put away Sean O'Malley in the 4th or the 5th. Of course, that is a very real possibility. But overall, I definitely do think this fight is going to be an absolute banger. I'm extremely excited to see what happens, but I guess only time will tell what does. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think O'Malley's gonna win this fight, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.